chaos. You can tell when they're actually upset about something and worried about something, and when they are just very gleefully planting bugs in people's ears and, talking about shithole countries and trying to start problems. You can tell when the media and everybody else that's attached to them are out there trying to start a problem, and when they're really concerned about something. And that's great. And again, that also means we're in some pretty dangerous waters, because we're not talking about October surprises, and we're getting October surprises in February these days. Because there's no more just campaigning. There's no more ideas. There ain't nothing like that. It's just about, I don't know. Anyway, we have plenty to do tonight. We got KrisAnne Hall coming on. We're going to have her on for a full, God knows how long. Maybe the whole show. But I gotta talk to her for at least 45 minutes to an hour about the big Supreme Court activity over the last week, including the immunity thing today. And I want to talk to her about the immediate and the long-term impacts and everything else like that. That should be great. In the second half, with whatever time we have left, I just want to go again. I want to go through the real craziness that's taking place at Pennsylvania Ave, and see how we. Of course, I'll be reading through your super chats and all that stuff. So it's going to be a good night. It really is, and I'm excited, especially because it's Independence Week. Tomorrow is officially Independence Day. Of course, we celebrate on the 4th of July. But July 2nd is when everything really popped off. And that's usually the time of year, the day of the year I love having KrisAnne on for, because she likes to really focus in on July 2nd. Well, I have her on July 1st today. And I guess that's just going to have to be good enough. And the great thing is, the weird thing, the cool thing, is that she is calling from London tonight. KrisAnne Hall is in London, England. She's in the belly of the Revolutionary War beast. So that's going to be pretty cool, So we'll talk a little bit about Chevron deference tonight, January 6th, the presidential immunity thing. Missouri v. Biden is going to be tied in with Chevron, and I know that KrisAnne has taken particular interest in that as well. So there's a lot. There's a lot to do, and you guys will be here. Tomorrow, I have a few things I want to do. It'll be like, cultural observations, especially over the last month, because this is the second year in a row that all of the Pride TM LLC stuff really fell flat, and a lot of corporate America retreated into the bushes, and it's just becoming mayhem, Pride riots. The Palestinian lobby got involved in a lot of the Pride demonstrations from the onset of June. It's been really, really interesting, because again, there's another thing that is no longer capable of persuading anybody peacefully to its cause anymore. And a little time spent on that, maybe some open lines. We'll figure out something else there too. And I'm thinking of some other things for Wednesday night before we're off for the 4th and the 5th. Ain't that great? And I got some great bookings coming up too. I'll tell you about it, okay? So in July, not only am I going to go hang out with Dave at the X22 Report again, that's going to be fun. We got Megan Fox coming back on. Isaac Weishaupt is coming back on in the middle of the month. We're going to talk about right around the time of the Trinity test anniversary. We'll talk Twin Peaks, all that other stuff. I've got a guest I'm working out right now who's going to come out, who was recommended to me by Ilana Freeland, about AI, nanotech, especially nanotech cleanse. I want to talk to him about that. Now, here's something interesting. I noticed these guys followed me on Twitter sometime last year. I didn't react. I just said, oh, cool. I told Anthony, and he had a good laugh about it. But I got in touch with Right Said Fred. Right Said Fred is going to be on the show on July 24th. I have to do a pre-record with them because they are in the UK. But I was talking with Fred, and so we're going to talk. I'm going to talk to Right Said Fred. They got to follow me for some reason. We have to have some kind of overlapping interests. So that should be pretty fun. Who else do I have here? We have a wonderful guest, Christy Laura Grace. She's coming on the day after Right Said Fred. She's a former biotech manager on to talk about bioweapons. That's going to be a good one, and it's also going to be partially off of YouTube. I've got a number of interesting things also going on right there. Oh, who else is going to be coming on? Okay, so this is happening. But I've been talking to Randall Carlson's people, and we're a go. We're just finalizing a date. So that's going to be an interesting night with Randall Carlson. That'll be sometime late in July, maybe early August. So we got some cool things coming your way. Not to mention September in-studio appearances by Jeremy Ryan Slade again. Adel, 412 and on. Adel Nero is going to be in studio on September 6th. Maybe I'll pack a hookah that night. And on September 12th, I'm even going that far out. Leo Zagami is coming on. So this will be pretty cool. I don't know. I don't want to do too much because KrisAnne's coming on soon, so I'll just tell you a couple more things. Dandelion Wine, just want to let you guys know again, right here, my copy of Dandelion Wine and the Donald Trump Rubber Ducky. I'm going to be giving it away on Wednesday night. The way to enter into it is to send a super chat to quitefranklysuperchat.com. All you got to do is send one. I only count it once. Anybody who has sent a super chat since this concluded last week, the day after this concluded, so as of Tuesday, the 29th, I think that's what it was. I don't know what the hell it was. When the hell was it? It was the 24th. Monday the 24th, we did our last session. So Tuesday the 25th. From Tuesday the 25th until Wednesday around noon, quitefranklysuperchat.com. Throw $2 in there, and you are in the running for The Duck and Dandelion Wine, which is such a beautiful book. All right, and also, oh shit, I was supposed to set it up tonight, and I completely forgot. It's the one thing I forgot to do. BitChute now has a live option, and tonight was going to be the first time I tried streaming on BitChute as well. I was going to add that to the mix. So I look forward to welcoming a new sliver of audience tomorrow when I try out BitChute Live. Other than that, on YouTube, I have a poll that's open right now. Anybody in the chat room can go and vote on it. I hope that you do. Here's the poll. The question is, and this is especially good for everybody that is listening to this on demand after the fact. The question is, what was Biden's greatest accomplishment? Okay? Is it A, crapping in front of the Pope, B, crapping in front of the Queen, or C, other? Now, other, that means leave it in the comments. Leave it in the comments after the show, the main comment section. Tell me Joe Biden's greatest accomplishment, aside from crapping in front of either the Pope or the Queen. Does a lot of poopy in front of people. So other than the poopy exploits, just let me know what you think he's been doing. Okay. Anyway, that's what I have. That's all I have for you. Hey, speaking of, because it's 7:08 and KrisAnne is calling in 4 minutes, here is a grab bag item for you, because since we already mentioned the Pope. Archbishop Viganò defies Vatican summons and denounces Pope Francis. This is from CatholicNewsAgency.com. Viganò on Friday said he will not participate in a Vatican summons to face charges of schism, reiterating his claims that Pope Francis is not the legitimate Pope of the Catholic Church. The Archbishop had previously revealed he received an email from the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith informing him of the trial. The deadline for Viganò to appear before the Vatican expired today. Steve Bannon went to jail. They did that too. I have a number of things to do when KrisAnne gets off, but we'll get around to it all. The former papal nuncio to the United States, who garnered headlines in 2018 for alleging that senior church officials covered up abuses committed by former Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, has repeatedly rejected the authority of Pope Francis since then and has called on him to resign. In a lengthy statement shared on social media June 28th, Viganò accused Pope Francis of heresy and schism over the promotion of COVID-19 vaccines and his overseeing of the 2018 Vatican-China deal on the appointment of bishops. He also says he has no reason to consider myself separate from the communion with the Holy Church and with the papacy, which I have already always served with filial devotion and fidelity, I maintain that the errors and heresies to which Francis adhered before, during, and after his election, along with the intention he held in his apparent acceptance of the papacy, render his elevation to the throne null and void. Viganò, who had been hiding for years, announced on social media on June 20th that he had been summoned for charges of schism. Schism is a canonical crime defined in the Code of Canon Law as a withdrawal of submission to the Supreme Pontiff from communion with the members of the church subject to him. But he said that he has no intention of subjecting himself to a show trial, further saying that he has not sent any materials in his defense to the dicastery, whose authority I do not recognize, nor that of its prefect, nor that of the person who appointed him. What a badass. Damn. Should have put Viganò in the badasses this week. There's always 2025, and I'm sure that he'll still be... There's more badassery coming our way with him. So, anyway, let's get this one kicked off. Wherever you're watching it live or on demand, please share the show out to whoever the hell you know. Let's do it. KrisAnne Hall is going to be on with us live from London in just a moment. Be right back.
I mean, from the moment he got convicted in New York on a case that broadly unified the right, and he got his big cash infusion, to the debate implosion of Biden last week, to now we know from the Supreme Court ruling today, he's not going to see the inside of a courtroom outside of sentencing in New York before November. He is on amazing luck. Democrats were hoping the month of June would totally change the trajectory of this campaign, and it did. Now they're in a nosedive, and they have no idea how to pull out of it. He is on an incredible winning streak right now.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!
Okay, so welcome to the show, ladies and gents. That was the fake show. This is the real show. Welcome, quite frankly. All right, so as I said before, lots of chaos. But you know when it's real, you know when it's fake. You know, some of the things that we're going to be doing tonight, the first one, of course, is Chevron deference, Chevron doctrine. We've done that a lot in the past. It's come up in the past, especially with KrisAnne Hall. And I remember we had paid specific attention to it when the nomination of Kavanaugh came up to the Supreme Court, because, of course, Chevron deference was something that, people who were analyzing the situation thought would be a key vote that he would be looking to overturn and set right. And that, of course, is essential, regulation, autonomy that's given to agencies and essentially emboldening the bureaucracy with a kind of autonomy in passing down regulations that affect every part of our lives. I mean, we're talking about everything. I want to ask KrisAnne about not only the EPA, but the CDC, everything, without any kind of congressional representation. Even if it was passed by Congress, all that would be unconstitutional. But the fact that it has been it's double unconstitutional, because then it's just like, hey, listen, this power does not exist, but would you like it? Nameless, faceless organization that nobody voted for? Of course. So every time that you have a little puddle of rainwater in your backyard that is taxed or, declared to be like a a public. I don't know. You can't remove. Who the hell knows? We're gonna get around to all of that stuff. 40 years. 40 years of that. 40 years of this. Hold on, I got KrisAnne that's here right now. Just give me a moment. I'm all over the place. I am just all over the place. But that's it. Okay, we got KrisAnne Hall. She is, as you all know, a constitutional attorney, a professor, a filmmaker, a talk show host, a noodle, a doodle, a poodle, and she is all over the place. And right now, she's not even in the United States. And
yeah, sorry, it took me a while to get on.
It's not even in the United States right now. Hey, KrisAnne, let me ask you something. What the hell are you doing out in the belly of the beast the night before Independence Day?
Yeah, right. So I'm rubbing it in. That's what I'm doing.
It's spooky.
Yeah, no. It's actually 12:15 here, and we just finished having our church is having a big revival meeting here all week. So we're here with the church.
Oh, that's why you're
revival meeting.
You know what?
Yeah.
I was going to save this for last, but I'll just throw it out there real quick first. I had somebody get in touch with me. Said, "Hey Frank, I hope I got this in time. But if you get this before KrisAnne is on, please tell her that Nathan and Joanna say hi and thank you for you and JC went to an audience member's wedding recently."
Oh yeah, Nate, Alabama.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome.
Yeah. I don't know. He pulled on the heartstrings of JC, and we flew up there, and JC married them, actually. So we didn't just attend, JC married them. Wow.
Now that's special right there. That's awesome.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun. It was a really, really beautiful wedding. So there was no thanks necessary. It was a blessing for us.
Well, I'm glad I saw that email before we went on air, because I would be remiss if I had... we had done all this and that didn't get mentioned. So that's wonderful, and I'm happy you're out there having a good time. And yeah, still I can't wait to talk to you about what's going on right now. You are in London, of course, but we're going to get some good work in here. Immediate and lasting impacts of the Supreme Court. Let's just start with Chevron. A little crash course. I did that before you got on, but anything you think that needs to be really hammered down. The administrative state is everything, and this is what I was most interested in hearing about. So I'm just going to let you set the table a little bit.
Yeah, so I wasn't obviously on with you before, so I hope I don't say anything and get in trouble. But the administrative state is actually worse than the fourth branch of government. It is the oligarchical rule of America. It's as a history person, I'll tell you, it's not just that. It's very like the Star Chamber courts of the 17th century. And these were courts that were just simply run by the king alone. And the only purpose of the court was to give the people the illusion that they had due process while actually just simply doing the violent bidding of the government. And so Chevron, so I don't want to get too deep and too legalese, but here's how this works. The executive agencies are created by Congress. So Congress creates the ATF, Congress creates the EPA, they create the USDA, they create the SEC, the FCC, the FAA, all these agencies, right? And so in their creation, they establish the rules upon which they are to operate and the rules that they are to enforce. And so what happened during the Chevron case, which was Antonin Scalia, by the way, who's supposed to, our conservative guy, what they said was that the agencies have the autonomy to interpret the meanings and the applications and the enforcement of the rules Congress makes when those rules have ambiguities. Which, of course, if you're going to give somebody a hammer, everything's going to be a nail, right? So everything became ambiguous, and the court and the administrative agencies were running roughshod, or well, they still do. And the reason they were able to get away with it is because, along with the agencies, Congress created what they call administrative courts. And this is why they're like the star courts of old. So go ahead and look that up and get a little history lesson on your own. But if the administrative agencies bring a penalty and a fine against you, and you want to challenge that, Chevron said that you had to challenge them in the administrative law courts, which means you go to their court, not a real court of law, and you argue. So let's just say you have a disagreement with the EPA, and you think that they've applied their rules incorrectly, or their rules are contrary to your rights. Well, according to the administrative law courts, you have to sue the EPA in the EPA court with an EPA judge who will decide if the EPA is following the EPA's rules. Oh. Can you see a problem with that?
Yeah, it's a big problem.
Yeah, it's a big problem. So this has been chipping away for a while. In the early, I think 2012, 2015-ish, the Supreme Court gave a family in Bonner County, Idaho, the authority to sue the EPA in real court, which was a good thing, but it really ticked me off because the EPA was fining this family $37,000 a day for clearing out a drainage ditch behind their house that was flooding their land. And the EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers said that by cleaning out the draining ditch that had been flooding their land, preventing them from building a house, they were interfering with a wetland and violating the Clean Air and Water Act. So they sued the EPA. Now, technically, they would have to challenge the application of that rule with the EPA's administrative law court. However, they sued to get the right to sue the EPA outside of the administrative law courts, and the Supreme Court said, yes, you can do that. So that was back 2012, 2015. They broke the ties there to the administrative law courts and gave people an actual due process remedy. So I believe that actually created the history that we saw today, in which the Supreme Court said that, that you can sue the SEC in any court.
Yeah, I mean, this is big here because, of course, people have been running wild. Some people have been running wild with the craziness that's been coming out is nuts too.
Yeah.
But for example, here, listen to this. Here's some of the crazy. This one guy, he comes out and he says, I don't think people have any idea what just happened, but if you live in a red state, you no longer live in the United States you thought you lived in. It's over. He said, if you're an American citizen stuck in the Confederacy, get out. But they're saying that it's hard to overstate the harm that we see from the Supreme Court's radical decision to overrule Chevron. It means fewer protections for environment, health, fewer protections for the environment, for health, for workers, for investors, for consumers. I mean, they're going across the board, and it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts.
Yeah. Well, they haven't had my course on the Fifth Amendment. That's the problem. So that's the real problem. The reality is the brainwashing is deep in America.
Yeah.
Right? Really, really deep. And part of that brainwashing is what you're talking about. People actually believe that regulatory agencies keep the water cleaner, keep the air cleaner, keep people safe. When in reality, that's just not true. And I'll give you a real life example. And I mean real life because I lived it, right? So in my life, I've had many jobs. I think you know that I was a biochemist, but I was also an analytical chemist in Westlake, Louisiana for a petroleum plant. And I learned a lot about the EPA back then. So, Westlake, Louisiana is classified as the cancer capital of the world, meaning there are more children in St. Jude's Hospital from Westlake, Louisiana than any other city in the world per capita. Now, that's because Westlake, Louisiana has a large concentration of petroleum refineries, petroleum plants where they take the oil and they make things from it. My particular plant made vinyl chloride monomers. You would know them as one of the products as pantyhose, right? And so they put off this very, very toxic, noxious sludge. And what I learned when I started researching why does everybody in this area get cancer if the EPA so heavily regulates this industry? Well, I found out, a couple decades ago, we convinced Congress to pass a law that says that executive agencies cannot survive off tax dollars. It was supposed to be our way to control big government, right? It was somebody's brilliant idea. So you can't survive off tax dollars. Federal agencies have to be self-sustaining. Well, they loved that, right? Because now all they do is fine people, right? So their only way to exist is through fining people. So what they do, and this is fact, okay? This is absolute fact. They tell the petroleum refineries, the petroleum plants, you have to do A, B, C to keep up with the environmental regulations. And if you don't do A, B, and C, we're going to fine you this amount. Well, as it turns out, to do A, B, and C, they have to do these very, very expensive upgrades to all of their equipment and all their processes. But it actually costs less for them to be fined for non-compliance than it costs for them to make the upgrades. So they don't make the upgrades and they just pay the fines as a cost of doing business every single year. And because the EPA keeps the fines underneath the cost of compliance, they get a continuing revenue stream.
Jeez.
Because the big corps would rather pay the fines than the cost to comply.
Jeez, Louise. It's like the opposite effect of the welfare state, where welfare keeps people trapped. They don't want to lose their subsidies. They don't want to make too much and lose their subsidies and really get hammered by life that way, that they actually choose to do less with themselves so that they can survive better. This is the opposite of that. It's just nuts. It's not. That's
look at what they did to what the EPA did to the Colorado River, and it's actually the federal government's fault, the Flint water crisis, right? All of that stuff was a failing of executive agencies. And the irony is something that I teach in my Fifth Amendment class is that the EPA, all these regulations that we have convinced people since the 30s that we need, right? We didn't have any of these regulatory agencies before the 30s. And they'll have you think before that people were bodies dropping dead in the street, right? Or people dying. Well, people were dying in the factories. Like there's this big famous case where people were working in a sausage factory and they would fall into the sausage maker and they would just grind up the people and there was no accountability. The irony is the executive agencies were created to penalize companies for negligence because the criminal justice system was so corrupt that they wouldn't prosecute the big corporate cats for their criminal negligence that resulted in the death of their workers, right? So you just pay somebody off and you don't, like Hunter Biden, right? You pay somebody off so you don't actually have criminal adjustments and the people are mad. So they said, okay, government, you won't prosecute these big corporate cats because of judicial corruption, political corruption. So we want you, government, to create a regulatory agency that will find the big corporate cats and keep us safe.
Makes sense. And then here we are. So now let's just get into, I guess the immediate and the long-term impacts are probably going to be the same. It's just that I guess it's a matter of how quickly people pick up the mantle here and start suing the hell. Because I know that there are people they've got a lot of issues with the EPA. Obviously, there's the FTC, there's the FDA. I saw
the ATF.
The CDC for that matter. I just saw somebody. This was just a federal jury just determined that Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee must pay $700,000 to an employee that was fired for refusing COVID vaccine. Now that has nothing to do with the CDC, but when I start seeing accountability like that being doled out in places like Tennessee with their insurance companies and this and that, and workplaces, I start thinking about agencies like the CDC that was giving all these coercive policies and suggestions to companies out there violating civil rights, almost as if, hey, listen, we're telling you to violate them, so don't worry about it. But now it looks like the chickens are come home to roost. And I just wonder how quick you think the fallout is going to be, because this is, like you said, the lifeblood of all these agencies is going out there and just making up the rules that people have to pay their way through.
Well, let's remember, this has been a kind of chink in the armor kind of thing. Right? I told you about the Supreme Court saying you can sue the EPA in a real court of law. Well, remember, I don't know if it was a year or 2 years ago, this Supreme Court, Justice Gorsuch wrote an opinion that said, and I think it was last year actually, said that the regulatory agencies cannot make up the rules and the laws where there's ambiguity anymore. So if we're going to be totally honest, Gorsuch threw out Chevron in that case, because the real power in Chevron was we get to make up the rules and we get to decide the rules are vague, even though they may not be vague. We'll invent vagary, and if that's even a word, and we'll then redefine terms. And so the court, and under Gorsuch as the majority opinion, wrote that no, if it's not expressly written by Congress, then it can't be enforced by the regulatory agencies. Now that knocked the legs out of a lot of them, especially with the Clean Air Water Act, because Congress had really gotten into the habit of writing these rules and regulations very vaguely. So that way they could shirk responsibility, hide accountability when people started complaining to Congress about the way these regulatory agencies were enforcing the rules and regulations. Congress was able to say, oh, well, we didn't say that. That's the regulatory agencies. You can't blame us. We did our job. And so Gorsuch really pulled the rug out from underneath Congress on that one and cut off the power supply to the regulatory agencies there. So this really is the nail in the coffin, if you will. And you never know what long term is, Frank, with the courts, because they could come along in another opinion next year and really narrow something down and think, oh goodness gracious, freaked out because now they've got all these regulatory agencies that are floundering, and somebody in Congress is threatening them in the mail because money lines are stopping somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So you never know long term. That everything could change, because when you operate under the opinion of an oligarchy as law, you really have banana government, because it can change anytime the court changes its mind, which is why courts don't issue rulings, right? We say that all the time, but courts don't issue rulings. Kings issue rulings. Courts issue opinions, which have no more force of law than your opinion or mine. And it was that way by design.
Well, you mentioned it just a couple of minutes ago. You as you were impersonating Congress by saying, "Hey, we did everything we were supposed to do." Blah blah blah. But when I even just thinking about the very nature of these agencies' existence, Congress doesn't have the authority to do what the agencies do.
Congress didn't even have the authority to create the agencies.
I know.
Remember, those agencies are not an authorized force of government through the Constitution. So the whole thing, as our founders would say, is pretended government operating under the color of law.
Yeah.
And so, we have to educate ourselves on these things, which is why, we do teach the Constitution the way we do, so we can educate ourselves and educate our sheriffs that these people and our governors eventually, that these agencies have no jurisdiction, but not only no jurisdiction, they have no authority because their very existence is contrary to Article 6, Clause 2 of the Constitution.
Oh, well, then I'm going to just throw this at you, even though I think I know what the answer is. This is from my friend Jay. He's been following the Amos Miller situation in Pennsylvania, the Amish farmer.
Yeah.
He says he's been in a long-standing legal battle, originally with the USDA, but now the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture is there with them over things like raw dairy. So will the Chevron decision help protect Amish farmers or any farms from health experts trying to shut them down on a federal or state level? It would just be federal, though, right?
It would just be federal, yeah. So you, the people of Pennsylvania, have to get your own government in check. I mean, that's why the power, as Madison said in Federalist 45, the powers reserved to the federal government are few and defined. We put them in a box. And the powers that remain in the states are numerous and indefinite, because the state government having access to more power can be greater limited by the people because you have access to those in government. You don't have any access to anybody in Congress. You certainly don't have any access to the President of the United States or the Supreme Court. So the power is remaining in the hands of the people through their state governments.
Mm-hmm. You know, the thing that gets me when I'm listening to all this, and I say, progressive ideas, if you really study them especially over the last 125 years or so, they really have very poor legislative record in this country, especially when it comes. And there's there's the party, and then of course there's there's the acknowledgement that both parties are actually very progressive. One is worse than the other, but whatever. Especially
just in different ways at different times for different reasons.
I know, there's no consistency there, but then again, there is, because we're keep marching in one direction. But especially when it comes to the 20th century, from the New Deal especially onward, the courts really constitute the backbone of progressivism as we are living through it today. Because especially on a state level, these ideas that they put forward, they're usually soundly rejected by people when it comes to a vote. It's just that these damn courts, and the issue is that precedent and coercion is really an act of it's an act of cultural grooming, because after 40 years of living under Chevron, people become convinced that it is right and proper for these experts at the EPA to regulate our business. And the same thing happened with...
And necessary.
Yeah. 50 years with Roe v. Wade. Same thing with that. Or affirmative action. When affirmative action was reversed, colleges in 2024 aren't being forced into creating admission quotas on race and sexuality. They're doing it with glee because this is just all they know, and their fellow travelers. I think that's the big thing with Missouri v. Biden there too. Aside from places like Twitter, most big tech and Silicon Valley, they know what direction they want to walk in, and it's usually in the same direction as the state.
Yeah, so, it's really because we've been deliberately made ignorant about the Constitution, about the proper role of government, especially in the judiciary. Remember, I'm a constitutional, I'm a historical wonk. So all of this stuff is stuff that I expect and stuff that I see that's just repeated in cycles throughout history, right? And so you said in the 20th century, it's actually the 19th century that a lot of this happened. And I've said this many times. We've got a show on this about the phenomenon of 1830, of how all that changed.
Yes.
But remember, it has a lot to do with the way we think and the way we speak, the very meaning, the very understanding that we say courts issue rulings gives us an idea of how we've been brainwashed, right? We've been brainwashed, and we even said that Roe v. Wade was the law of the land. And no, it was a Supreme Court opinion, not a ruling. and opinions don't carry the force of law. And so it's how we react to these things that has been designed by the way we've been taught to think about these things since the 1830s. And so we've actually fallen under this oligarchical rule of 5. I know there's 9 on the Supreme Court, but it only takes 5 to issue their majority opinion. So we're ruled by an oligarchy of 5, and we have to break free from that mentality and that conditioning if we're really going to break free from government. The problem is that, as you so aptly mentioned in the beginning, this is not a liberal affliction. This is a both sides affliction. And unfortunately, Frank, none of this will change, period, until we stop choosing judges based on their political opinions. You wonder why you get political opinions from judges? Because we put them on the benches based on their political opinions. Every time there's a nomination, every time there's a confirmation, there's this big discussion. Is this person a liberal judge? Is this person a conservative judge? Well, that's how you get activist courts, because you look for activist judges. I don't know, maybe not since Madison was president or even Jefferson did we actually look for presidents that were constitutional instead of one political ideology or another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you, and I think that has become, at least with audiences like this, a little bit more in the forefront of our minds. And we've had that Joseph Story session with you, I think once or twice.
Yeah, you get an A.
It keeps coming up. Hey, it keeps coming up, and then all of a sudden you see affirmation of that history all over the place. And
I'm so proud.
Yeah, well, listen, we've been friends, and you've been teaching us all I've been learning for years now.
How many years? I don't even know.
Well, well, your first appearance on the show was in the old studio, so it's at least 2014 or 15. So we're looking at.
Wow.
I think it's a decade. I think it's a decade.
Decade.
Yeah.
And I still haven't been in studio.
I know.
We are slacking.
We're getting close.
We are slacking.
Yeah, I know. You went to London before you came to New York.
I know. I told JC we're just gonna, we're not even gonna wait for a meeting. Frank is going to be our meeting. We're just gonna jump on a plane and come up there and see you.
Well, we'll figure it out. I promise we'll figure it out. But how about this? Because I want to do January 6th, and then I want to talk about the immunity thing, because you want to talk about activist judges. I've got to read with you.
Oh, we can't miss Missouri, though.
Oh, talk about that. That relates to Chevron a little bit more. So talk about Missouri quick.
Well, no, it doesn't. Well, Missouri, that might be, you talk about all the cases that have happened. That might be the most dangerous Supreme Court case we've had in decades. And it's very unfortunate to me that so many in the conservatives blocks are missing how big and bad this is. I mean, Amy Coney Barrett authored the majority opinion, proving once again that I was right about who she is. And so basically what we have now is the Supreme Court sanctioning the FBI to become an FBI Ministry of Propaganda. We've talked about this on your show, Frank. Remember, there's the Smith Modernization Act. We talked about that the Republicans jammed that through the NDAA in 2012, which gave permission to the federal government to use our tax dollars to create propaganda. They knew, they didn't have to intend, but they knew that it would be used domestically, where the American people could be confused by it, right? And so once that law went through the pipe 2025, then you watch 2013, you watch how the fake news shot like a rocket, and the credibility of the media is just in the tank. And that's because immediately our FBI, I'm just going to throw it out there, the CIA started pumping out all this propaganda and paying our news wires to print these things and paying our reporters and our journalists. They're not journalists, they're reporting the propaganda fed to them by the government. And so now what we know, and this is the most stunning thing, because in this opinion, the majority of court under Barrett admitted that the FBI has been using coercion to control the censorship, the speech that happens in the social media.
And we got to see that with the Twitter files, especially.
Yeah.
So
they admitted this happened, but then Barrett, remember, who's supposed to be the conservative constitutionalist justice, said, oh yeah, it's happening. It just doesn't rise to the level of creating damages. Nobody can prove that anybody was damaged by this, right? So the doctors can't prove that they were damaged, so they don't have standing. And the states don't have standing no matter what, which is just enormous for constitutional First Amendment law. Because we have this principle of constitutional law that has been around since the beginning of constitutional law called the chilling effect. I'm sure you've heard of it before, at least from me. So when the government engages in any kind of discrimination, coercion, or control, any kind, like even just a boot, right? The courts have always held that creates in the public a chilling effect. And the chilling effect is defined as a fear that comes over the people that makes them shut their own mouth, right? Because they're afraid of the penalty the government is going to impose upon them, okay? Or they're afraid they're going to lose the money that they get from the federal government, or who knows what the FBI told these agencies. We don't really even know everything, right? So the courts have held since the beginning of free speech time that if the government engages in any kind of control whatsoever, the chilling effect is damages. So you don't have to prove monetary damages. You don't have to prove loss of property. You don't have to prove any harm if you prove the chilling effect. And that's where Barrett must have fell asleep in her constitutional law class in law school and just simply didn't pay attention the rest of her legal career, because you don't need to prove damages when the federal government or any government is controlling and censoring speech. It's per se damages. Not to mention the fact that the attack on state sovereignty that happened. You have the Supreme Court of the United States declaring that states do not have standing to stand up for the people's rights, when our Declaration of Independence actually states the only purpose of government is to stand up for our rights. And the legislators of the state of Virginia in 1799 gave this big declaration that said that it's the state's duty to be the guardians of the people's liberty, especially in the face of an overreaching federal government. So you're dealing with a century and a half, more than that, of government declaring that the whole reason we have the states is to secure the rights of the people. And we have Amy Coney Barrett and her crazy liberal majority court saying, nope, the states aren't the guardians of the people's liberty. They don't have the right to stand up for the people's rights. And so now you have Amy Coney Barrett actually creating by fiat the authority for the FBI to have a Stalin-esque FBI Ministry of Propaganda.
Then that's going to lead us right into this next thing with January 6th, because the chilling effect after that, especially another Fed control. Now, the narrative was controlled online. The narrative was controlled online, no doubt. And of course, on a physical level, there was a lot of control and steering and manipulation going on there as well. So with this, let us know what is the most useful thing to know about the January 6th thing, because what I've heard is that there's already tons of people whose attorneys are opening up the books again, hoping to get sentences reduced, commuted, whatever the hell it is. What's changed? What's the good, the bad, the ugly?
Okay, well, let me mention this really quick before we leave Missouri. Let's just be clear about one thing. the social media is a private corporation, right? We have to be clear about that. What this court did was give the FBI the authority to coerce and control any private corporation and their message and what they do. And at this point, even their business, which is full on communistic, jackbooted thuggery government.
And just to jump onto that one thing there too, because like I said before with the Twitter files, there was like 20 of those that came out. I think I read the first 3. It was crazy to see that even with the old Twitter management, there were some people under old management, which was obviously so far left. I mean, it's gotten a little bit better now, but even now, people are. It's not perfect, but they were actually. You can see quite a few people on the inside in management that was uncomfortable with this pestering between the agency, between the bureau, I should say, and telling them to take things down. There was people there under old management that you would think that they would be like, yeah, what next, sir? But they weren't. So. Yeah. That was pretty interesting to notice. Okay, that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah. So Benjamin Franklin wrote in 1722, in a country where a man cannot call his tongue his own, he can scarce call anything his own. He said, directly related, and I'm paraphrasing it, to freedom of speech is the right to property and the control and ownership of property. He said, anyone who is to overturn the liberty of a nation will begin first by subduing the freeness of speech. So this is the end of property rights. We've already had them in the tank because of property taxes. But think about this. If the government is now has the authority by the Supreme Court to coerce you into speaking, believing, and acting under any ideology they want, the consequence can be, okay, you lose your home, you lose your business, you do things our way, or you don't own anything. And that's really where this goes. And it's, like I said, it's very disappointing to me that there are so many who generally like to jump on the fear-mongering bandwagon in the conservative circles, who are missing the really big picture on this one. So January 6th, what's the biggest takeaway on this? The federal government are a bunch of blundering idiots. That's the biggest takeaway. Because, and as Gorsuch said, he was absolutely right. They picked the wrong statute. They can't charge these guys with the statute that they picked, because the language and the traditional application of the way the statute was written doesn't allow for them to do, there's a little legal term I'll throw out there, bootstrap. They're not allowed to bootstrap, to just simply reach out and grab anything and shove it into this list. So Congress made a list of things that were violations and then further expanded on the application of the penalties based on that limited list. And what the feds tried to do was say, okay, they made this list, and then in this next clause, they said, okay, those things and anything else that we want, right? And so the principle is, if we make a list, we don't mean you can generally do whatever you want to do. Because if you can generally do whatever you want to do, then there's no point in making a list. So that's the general application. And the court said they made a list. You got to stick to the list. You can't just throw anything else in there. Now, I say they're a bunch of blundering idiots because they had a statute that was actually passed in 2012 or 2014. 2012, I think. 2012 was a very bad constitutional year. Called the Federal Buildings Federal Buildings and Grounds Improvement Act, which makes you think that it's about, trimming hedges and planting flowers, but it's not. It's all about controlling the speech of people during government assemblies. And I won't get into the big explanation of this. I actually wrote an article about it on my website when it happened, but they could have used that. Definitely, because they wouldn't have had to destroy any documents. They wouldn't have had to do any destruction like the statute that they chose. What was they would have just simply had to.
What was the statute? Just real quick, like what was the detail? What was the thing that really tripped up everything?
Well, the statute said that they had to hide or destroy documents, and I don't remember the statute right off exactly. But they had to hide or destroy or obstruct these physical things, right? Like a document or an actual
A podium.
instrument that is used.
Yeah. Okay. Like a podium.
But right, exactly. So, but under the Federal Buildings and Grounds Improvement Act, all they have to do is interfere with the ordinary course of government, which means whatever you do, right? So anything that you do that interrupts somebody in politics is now a felony on the federal level. And so the example I gave was, if your congressman comes home and does a town hall meeting, right? And you stand up and you disagree with your congressman, and you get really angry or emotional or passionate with your congressman, you have now violated that law.
It would follow them because they are in a sense an extension of DC.
Yeah, it follows anyone who is protected or could be protected by the Secret Service. It follows them wherever they go. It's interesting. Do you remember when the crazy guy climbed over the fence at the White House and went after Barack Obama?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why they passed this law. They passed this law under the guise, well, we have to protect the president from crazy guys who go after the president, right?
So do you believe that there's going to be a recharging? Is there going to be a recharging, or is this something where you had your shot, you screwed up? If everybody's attorneys goes and makes good use of this, and if there is a way to get people out of jail early or whatever the hell else, does this mean that the federal government, if they stay intact under a regime like this, that is actually
key.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's really key what you said there. If you keep the same regime, right? But remember, the regulatory agencies, the FBI and all those people, they are the deep state, right? Because they're the ones that never go away. Presidents come, presidents go, Congress comes, Congress goes. These people stay the same. So you not only have to have a different regime with a different ideology, you have to have a regime that's willing to, really stranglehold the DOJ and the FBI and not let them get away with stuff like this. So it is possible that they could be charged under a different charge, because that wouldn't technically be double jeopardy, right? Because you can't charge somebody with the same crime. You can't try somebody with the same crime twice, right? But you can say, okay, I didn't charge the crime right, so now I'm going to charge you with the right crime. Now, as a defense attorney, I would argue that these are the same facts and you're charging me for the same incident. You're just calling it something else. So it would be this big court battle now over the definition of what is double jeopardy.
Oh, yeah, I know. And it's also a multi-year effort now that would have to go back
absolutely.
So I think a lot of people are just hoping that this is a very well-timed blunder, clerical error. I don't know what the hell it would be, but nobody would care, because ultimately it would just be great to see all these people who have been tortured for nothing but narrative purposes to get the hell out of there.
Let's remember that with the president of the United States could pardon all of them when the new president goes into office. So it's not just a matter of a regime change. You actually have a real presidential authority to pardon people for federal crimes. So, that's what I mean. You're going to have to get somebody that's going to be a check and balance on the DOJ and say, you know what, we're going to pardon them if you're going to go after them again.
Yeah, it may be one of the only reasons why I'm actually voting again. Yeah. I mean, on that level, there's always the local elections and stuff like that. But on that level, I think it's just crossing my fingers that if it is Trump, that these people, it's really just about them. That's one of those things. Right. Now let's talk about Trump and immunity and pardons and all that stuff. So the big blow here, it seems to me, is that the Uniparty are not going to have Trump in a courtroom prior to the election. But this is gone. This is not just it hasn't gone away just yet, because now what needs to be argued is what constitutes actions that he took on that's official capacity and unofficial duty, because what the court said today was that when a president acts in his official duties, he is almost immune to everything, but unofficial duties does not apply. So seems like
that's not quite accurate.
Okay.
So let me help you.
Yeah.
Because I'm sorry to roll my eyes. I am watching the left and the right completely get this wrong. And it's frustrating how our judicial literacy is so low in America.
Oh, it's bad.
So the court opinion creates 3 scenarios, not 2, 3. So a president will have absolute immunity only for acts that are illegal, but done via, let me put it this way, for accusations of criminal acts done according to Article 2 powers. Okay? So absolute immunity only applies to acts conducted by the president under direct Article 2 authorization. Article 2 authorization is treaties and war crimes, stuff like that, right? So that would be covered under Article 2. That's where the only time they have absolute immunity, when they're doing their job according to Article 2. Now, it says that presidents have at least a presumptive immunity when they are engaged in official acts. And that would be, please pardon me, something outside of Article 2, which, I'm not really quite sure how that works. Maybe congressional or speeches or employment or something. I don't know. It's hard for me to wrap my brain around a president operating constitutionally to do something that's not authorized by the Constitution, but nonetheless. So act number 1, total absolute immunity for Article 2 powers, presumptive immunity for official acts, and no immunity for unofficial acts. So at this point, there is not absolute immunity for official acts. There is only presumptive immunity, which opens up a whole new can of worms of what's official, what's unofficial. And if you decide that it is official, it's not absolute immunity, it's a presumptive immunity, which means now you have to prove that there is no immunity. And you first have to prove that it's an official act, then you have to prove that there is no immunity, and then you can prosecute.
How fun. That sounds like a big fun nightmare right there.
Yeah, and I'm watching everybody like, oh, the presidents are going to be doing, what about war crimes, and the presidents are going to be out of control. And here's the thing, Frank, this has been the standard for 200 years. This 3-prong thing has been the standard for 200 years. Now, it may not have been written down that way, but that's been the standard for 200 years. It's why you've never seen another president go through this ever before, right? Even though we've had plenty of presidents who have been accused of criminal acts, none of them have actually been tried in a criminal court. So what the Supreme Court did was not invent a new standard like everybody on the right and the left are just freaking out about. What the Supreme Court did was they wrote down the standard of 200 years so that you couldn't change the standard for somebody you didn't like, Trump, right? So you have to hold Trump under the same standard you've been holding every president for 200 years, and we're going to write it down. So now you have to hold everybody under that standard moving forward, right? So if you're worried about absolute immunity for for Article 2 acts, let's not forget, impeachment is how that's supposed to work, right?
Yeah.
Impeachment. So, I don't, and then you have the right running around totally misclaiming that Trump won and that, Trump's not going to be tried for anything and Trump has absolute immunity. The court did not say that in any way, shape, or form. And as you so accurately put out, they just threw it back to the court to decide, okay, was this official or not? Was this an act pursuant to Article 2 or not.
I think that a lot of people on the right who are, I mean, and to your point, a lot of people just might be getting all the details wrong. But I think the most easy thing to grasp right now is that, like you said, 200 years of tradition and precedent has been turned on its head because this was part of a re-election campaign. It was very obviously political. So I think that the celebratory thing right here is that even if this does go through the whole rigmarole in the lower courts of reaching of establishing new definitions of what's official and unofficial and blah blah blah, what all that stuff is probably going to happen in 2025 now, and this was all supposed to be a hampering effect in an election year. So that's probably why that. Yeah. But here, listen to your point. Here's a couple of tweets. This one is from a dingbat named Aaron Rupar. He says, so if Joe Biden declared today that November's election is canceled and ordered the military to keep him in power, would that be official acts of presidency?
No, because he doesn't have the authority to do that.
Here's another. I know. I'm just saying.
That would be an unofficial act.
Here's Bradley Moss. Says the Supreme Court just gave Biden unequivocal immunity to order the military to take action against Trump right now.
Okay.
Nuts.
Unofficial act.
Yeah. Nuts. Here's another one for you. Dash Dobrovsky, a real pea-brain. I strongly encourage Joe Biden to take action of his absolute immunity, which he has now been lawfully granted by Trump's Supreme Court, to do whatever official acts he needs to do in order to prevent Donald Trump from becoming president. People have been asking SEAL Team 6 to go on an assassination spree all day today. I mean, it's not. But listen, when you said judicial illiteracy, KrisAnne, I thought that you were actually at first talking about the judges, because did you read some of the stuff coming out of Sotomayor?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, look at Barrett's opinion in Missouri. I mean, the whole thing. Remember, when did all of this start going bad? All of this started going bad in 1830, and it started going bad in the legal education, right? Joseph Story's book was not written for the average Joe walking down the street. Joseph Story's book on the Constitution was written to be for lawyers to learn how to apply the Constitution. And so you have to understand, and I don't think people really get the magnitude of what I'm saying. We don't teach the Constitution in law school. Not only do we not teach the Constitution in law school, we teach lies about the Constitution in law school. I would literally not be here today if they had taught the truth about the Constitution. But I started reading what our Constitution was supposed to, how our Constitution was supposed to be applied by the men who actually wrote the Constitution, men and women, by the way, who actually wrote the Constitution, and I got mad because of all the lies. So I'm actually here in a state of rebellion because of all the lies that I was taught. Now, I don't want to get away, Frank, without showing you the best part of the immunities case.
Okay.
The best part about the immunity case actually comes from Clarence Thomas's concurrence. And it is so good. I'm actually going to read to you from the opinion. Are you ready?
I can't wait.
Okay, it is so good. This is, my husband so accurately calls this the shot across the bow, right? Because a concurring opinion doesn't hold legal authority. It's what we call dicta, but it is an indication of what is to come if changes aren't made. So here's Clarence Thomas's concurring opinion. He says, and I quote, "I write separately to highlight another way in which this prosecution may violate our constitutional structure." By the way, I like the way he says constitutional structure and not constitutional rights, because we don't have constitutional rights. Our rights don't come from the Constitution. We have natural rights, and our Constitution was written to protect them. So the constitutional structure exists to protect our natural rights. Just, I digress, but here we go. Excuse me. He says, in this case, the Attorney General purported to appoint a private citizen as special counsel to prosecute a former president on behalf of the United States. But I'm not so sure that any office for special counsel has been established by law, in quotation marks, as the Constitution requires. Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2, by requiring that Congress create federal offices by law, the Constitution imposes an important check on the president. He cannot create offices at his pleasure. If there is no law establishing the office of the special counsel, establishing the office that the special counsel occupies, then he cannot proceed with his prosecution. A private citizen cannot criminally prosecute anyone, let alone a former president. And so, what's very interesting is, I'm not trying to sound like I'm something, but I actually warned about using special counsels back when we had a Republican majority, and they were using special counsel against the Democrats. And I said, look, you can't do this because you're now opening the door for political war through the use of special counsels that have no constitutional authority. So basically, the Congress has been using these special counsels, right, to avoid their responsibility to engage in the proper checks and balances that we find in impeachment. So instead of impeaching people, we've been having these fake hearings with these unconstitutional special officers, right? Mm-hmm. To appease the people when they want to see some political action, would do something and do nothing at all. When in reality, they created their own mechanism of political warfare.
Committees. It is why we just get bogged down by committees and all their their pseudo investigations. It just becomes television programming for people, and man, oh man,
and tries to make people think they're actually doing something. But what you actually have is the government investigating itself.
Well, January 6th committee was one hell of a spectacle, and then when they closed up shop, they literally burned all of their own records and wanted to forget that they were ever around. I mean, they existed to do nothing but narrative support for the media during a time when that was a very hot topic in the news. Nobody gives a shit about January 6th anymore, but we, as a news story. But of course, we should give a shit as far as the lives that are being ruined by it still. But that's what all that committee existed to serve. Man, I wish that that Justice Thomas was 50 years old again, because if there's only a couple of people in this government that I actually look forward to listening to or reading what they write. And
well, Gorsuch is the best writer up there. He's got the best style, and he's the most constitutional. But I will tell you, I'm sort of scratching my head as of late, because Thomas didn't used to be this on mark. Okay, so I don't know what's happened in the last few years, and he's had some kind of Charles Dickens moment, but he used to be a huge police powers advocate for the government to do whatever they did for national security, and he's always defending the FBI and always defending police powers like that. So I'm not quite sure if he got a whole old visit from some ghastly specter of an old dead attorney, but Supreme Court justice, but he has really, really changed the way he handles these kinds of cases. And I'm very pleased by it, because we need him for this particular time to be exactly who he is now.
Yeah. Well, you know what? If that's the case, I hope Jacob Marley knocks on everybody's door, because that would that'd be something else. Okay. Well, KrisAnne, I would keep you on for a little bit longer, but it's past 1 o'clock over there, and we did so much, and I appreciate.
Oh yeah.
I appreciate this so much. Is there any aside from KrisAnneHall.com? All of your work is on there. It's in the description of the episode. I've had it on screen a few times, but aside from just saying goodnight, is there anything, any brief parting shots for Independence Day you want to leave people?
Well, I would like to mention that I do work every day on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and on X. So if you're not following me on social media, you're not getting what you need to know about what's happening in government every day. And that's the bottom line. I don't get a chance to write. I am so busy. I get up at 3 a.m. every day. I'm in bed after 11 or 12 every day. So I just don't have time to write full out articles anymore. So if you're not following them on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on X, or on Facebook, you're not getting this. All of the stuff that we talked about today, I've put out over and over and over again. Well, I am in London, and my parting word for Independence Day is this. So we're standing in the Heathrow Airport, and an English woman, maybe about my age, and her mother were standing around, and her mother was being funny and said that she was going to go sit. We're in the baggage claim, which they call the baggage reclaim, I think, which is more accurate, right?
Yeah, it is actually.
So yeah, isn't it? And she said, I was talking about being funny about how she said, I was thinking about, because we were waiting a long time, I was thinking about going and sitting over on the baggage reclaim belt, but I was afraid that it might start up and spin around. And I looked over there and I said, y'all might be better. The British must be better behaved than Americans. Because in every single American airport I've been to, there are signs everywhere. Do not stand on the belt. Do not sit on the belt. Don't do that. There are none of those signs anywhere. There's no signs telling you not to stand or sit on the luggage belt. And then I said, but I guess that makes sense. Because if we were well obeyed and if we were well behaved and obedient, we'd still be British.
That's
my advice to you today on Independence Day, which is tomorrow, remember, July 2nd, 1776 is our Independence Day, is to continue to be, to not be well behaved and to continue to be disobedient, because that is the spirit of America.
That's it. There's the fireworks we need. So I hope everybody in this audience goes to the nearest airport tomorrow and lie on the conveyor belts. That's number one.
Yes.
We're bringing it back.
Yes.
Thank you so much, KrisAnne. Happy Independence Day to you. Send my love to JC and the whole family. We'll talk soon.
I will. All right. God bless you guys.
All right. Take care. There you go. Well, listen, hey, it's extra late over there. Extra late. She's got to go, but I'm glad that we got all that in. Listen, when we get back on the other side of this really quick break, I'm going to read you a couple of passages that are just ridiculous. And then I'm going to go into some other things. We have more than enough time to get through everything I have and then some. So that means I'm going to read your super chats, quite frankly, superchat.com, or there's the gold pills on quitefrankly.tv, powered by Pilled. And what else do we have? Oh, the Rumble rants. I'm going to get to those just in a little bit, but a lot more great stuff coming your way. And it's only going to be like a 90-second break. So go to the bathroom real quick, get a refill on your ice water, your seltzer and lime, whatever the hell it is, and we will be right back.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out. Press the like button.
Hey.
Thank you.
Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic.
Well,
Quite frankly.
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 Quite frankly, guys.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
So everybody watch, quite frankly, with Frank.
Quite frankly. How dare you?
Welcome back. Welcome back. It's July. Listen, you may not want to watch the Mark Swanish character dancing around with his big belly and his little Speedo on. You may not want to see that. But if you've been watching this show for any number of years, you now realize how important that big-bellied man is, because it marks the time. Do you know how surreal it is that I'm looking at his stomach jiggling around again like a bowl full of jelly? Do you know what that means? It's incredible. It's July again. It's also scary, but it's all right. We get through it all. Happy summer. Take a listen to this. You want to hear a crazy ass? You want to hear a crazy ass? Here is Sotomayor. The President of the United States is the most powerful person in the country and possibly the world. When he uses his official powers in any way under the majority's reasoning, he will be insulated from criminal prosecution. What? Where did that come? What are you talking about? Like, what did it? I read this and I was saying to myself, okay, so the case didn't go away. It got punted down to the lower courts. There has been a clear definition between what is immune, what qualifies immune action, and what is not immune, and that the lower courts now have the added burden of trying to define which is what and all that stuff. And the big thing is that a re-election year ploy to bog down a political opponent in the courts is now gone. Okay? 2024 is off the docket. That was the big thing here. It didn't go away. Who knows where it'll come? Maybe the chances have plummeted in some other way. But I'm looking at this and I'm like, what is she talking about? And it's reflected in all of the assholes out there that also don't know their ass from their elbow. But she is a justice. She's a Supreme Court justice. Sonia Sotomayor is a woefully unintelligent person. It's incredible. It's incredible. She truly is a role model. If you're stupid, you may become a justice one day on the Supreme Court. Congratulations. When he uses his official powers in it, here, let me put it up on the screen. And anyway, under the majority's reasoning, the majority of the justices, he's now insulated from criminal prosecution. Orders the Navy SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival, immune. Really? Really? So I guess that's where all of the reasoning, the Navy SEAL 6, that's where the Team 6 stuff came from. It's Sotomayor, because everybody started using that as an example. Organizes a military dissenting coup to hold on to power, immune. Really? It's executive privilege for a president to order a military takeover of the entire government? She's stupid. She's really I mean, you want to talk about overcorrection. It's just so stupid because you can tell that you need some intelligence to at least find a good analogy. And she couldn't even find a good analogy. This is such a huge overcorrection here. Listen to this next one that she says. Takes a bribe in exchange for a pardon. Immune, 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 immune. 4 immunes. This is like a Tumblr blog. Sonia Sotomayor is a Tumblrina. Crazy. Showing up at that ball pit at DashCon. I can't believe it. Did Sonia Sotomayor go to DashCon that first year? I can't believe this. Takes a bribe. Is selling pardons an official duty? Is it legal? Does the Constitution allow a president to sell a pardon? Like, why would you even say that? She's just an unintelligent person. But we've seen her do things like this so many times in the past. Let the president violate the law. Let him exploit the trappings of his office for personal gain. He didn't even take a salary. He didn't even take a salary. Let him use his official power for evil. Because if he knew that he may one day face liability for breaking the law, he might not be as bold and fearless as we would like him to be. That's the majority's message today. That is a Supreme Court. I mean, just grammatically speaking, this is like, I don't know. There's fifth graders that write better than this. It's one thing if she's going to be, speak in such breathless terms, but to not even be poetic about it, she just doesn't have the capability of expressing thoughts well. It's just so crazy, man. Crazy. Now, many people will think that she's making a great and salient and very impactful point because, of course, the position that she holds, and that's nuts in itself. How could she be wrong? How could she not know what she's talking about? She's a Supreme Court justice. She's stupid. So there's that. And here's the kid from Rye, Harry Sisson. According to the Supreme Court, Biden can now send in SEAL Team 6 to take all of them out. He could send in the military to take out Trump. He has immunity for official acts now. What a dumb little bitch. But then again, he pees all over the equipment at the Rye YMCA, so puddles of pee-pee all over the place. It would be, here's more for you. You want to see a little bit more of the crazy? Here you go. So Biden should order SEAL Team 6, whatever, to shoot Trump, Bannon, Johnson. I'm good with that. Look at that. A Supreme Court justice goes and spews ridiculous bullshit out of her mouth, and suddenly everybody's asking the SEALs to go and murder and be okay with it, too. So Biden can arrest the Supreme Court? He should institutionalize Sotomayor. And Kagan, for that matter. So Biden could order 6 out of 9 Supreme Courts arrested. Oh, it's just... Ladies and gentlemen, there's just so much here. There's just so much. I read these and I'm just like, listen, leftists are violent morons to begin with. So this type of reaction to anything is really not surprising. But aside from ironically projecting their own penchant for tyranny, I was saying to myself, all of their indictments that they've concocted claim that Trump is committing crimes outside of formal executive duties. So this is a battle of definitions, and they're just upset that they are unable to take this guy off the campaign trail and put him in jail. And you should ask yourself why, because no matter who the Democrats put up, they are a voting force of 81 million. They're a voting bloc of 81 million people. They can say whatever the hell they want about Joe Biden's cognitive ability in 2020. Anybody would say it wasn't even about Joe Biden. It was because we knew how bad it was going to be if we had 4 more years of Trump. So if that's the case, then literally anybody that has a D next to their name in November should get at least 81 million votes. I have to imagine a few million of them are dead now. And then a few million already were dead. I don't know what's going on here. But they don't act like people who command that kind of a majority in the country. They just don't act like that at any turn. They're very, very crazy. And then Biden's Justice Department, here's an example. You want to talk about precedent. You want to talk about craziness. You want to talk about going after political opponents. They're afraid Trump might enforce the law and they might get caught up in it. Meanwhile, this is what they're doing. Biden's Justice Department shatters historical precedent. This is from Kaneko the Great. By now imprisoning 2 Trump advisors, Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon, for contempt of Congress, destroying a 250-year tradition of honoring executive privilege. Obama's DOJ didn't prosecute Eric Holder and Lois Lerner following contempt referrals after they invoked executive privilege. Bush's DOJ didn't prosecute Josh Bolton or Harriet Miers following the contempt referrals after they invoked executive privilege. Biden's DOJ didn't prosecute Merrick Garland following contempt referrals after they invoked executive privilege. The Justice Department hasn't prosecuted executive officials who were instructed by the president to invoke executive privilege until Biden's DOJ targeted Trump's advisors. Because, of course, to do that is to bolster the past narratives that were at the crux of impeachments, and they're at the crux. I mean, that's really Biden's presidency is a matter of needing to bolster that narrative of Trump having such fear of the Biden candidacy that he had to go to Ukraine to find some dirt on him. Okay, which is nonsense. So it's all really about, let's go out and get somebody, and then let's get other people, and let's find other ways of making it seem like it's more and more of a legitimate pursuit as time goes on. That's why during the Russia investigation, everybody was getting those process crimes sent their way, where you get like a week in jail or a small fine, like a parking ticket. They just wanted everybody around Trump to look completely completely corrupt and slimy and all that shit. It's just the way it is. So I have to imagine these people would be very scared of having the apple cart disrupted, because who is coming? Who's coming, man? It's that'd be really interesting to see. It's going to be interesting who steps in, because this Biden thing I saw yesterday, it was over the weekend. Here's from Zero Hedge, and I'll get to your super chats. From Zero Hedge, there it is. Biden family now expected to discuss the future of campaign after disaster dementia debate. After Jill Biden spent Saturday in the Hamptons orchestrating Weekend at Bernie's 3, NBC News reported that the Biden family is expected to discuss the future of his re-election campaign at Camp David on Sunday following a horrendous debate on Thursday, which laid bare to the world the fact that Joe Biden is not running the country. That's such a very huge point right there. It's a huge point. There's nothing to discuss. There's no campaign. But that's the issue. He's the acting president. Forget about the campaign. He's the acting president. If you forget about how he was already deep into cognitive decline in 2020 when the CNN video department did all of Biden's campaigning for him. I mean, few are talking about right now, Biden's signature is the most powerful one in the union until January of 2025, or what seems to be his signature, his name on paper. That is a current reality. It's not like the Democrats have picked up a doddering old fool as their candidate as they're trying to beat a Republican incumbent. He's already there, and he's there until January. You know, I mean, and this is while we're on the brink of several war battlefronts, whatever that. You just think about that. They're panicking so much over how badly he's polling since the debate that they haven't even acknowledged that we are officially an oligarchy. Just like KrisAnne Hall was talking about right now. You and I have been saying it from the get-go, but Joe Biden is not any real person of consequence. He never was. But after last Thursday, anyone who thinks that empty husk has been running the show at any point to any degree in the last 4 years is, I don't know. I mean, if you know someone like that, you may love them. They may be family, a friend, whatever the hell it is, a spouse. But the one thing they're not is a serious person. They think that he's been running the show. And you know what the crazy thing about this is? I'm not going to force Star Wars down anybody's throat, but it's a Star Wars fail kind of perspective there. Again, back to 81 million votes. Star Wars Episode 7, okay? The Force Awakens. Not a perfect film at all. Even when we saw it when it came out in 2015, we were excited. It's a new Star Wars. Who knows where they're going to go with it? We did not know that they didn't have a plan. We didn't know that they wanted to destroy it all. We didn't know that they had so much contempt for the fan base. They had contempt for everything. Didn't know all that. So Episode 7 comes out, and not a perfect film, but there were cracks in the facade. But it wasn't until The Last Jedi. Couple of years later, that comes out. And it was so bad and such a hatefully done film that the little cracks that you forgave in the previous film started to look more like canyons. And then you start realizing, oh, okay, this was not done with any amount of love or intelligence. Or, of course, with complete disdain and malevolence. I guess that's what it is. And then you realize this was fucked from the get-go, wasn't it? Yep. Yes, it was. So now, did Joe Biden really attract 81 million votes? Did he really outpace Barack Obama? Liberals who might be watching right now for some perspective, did he really outpace Barack Obama's vote totals? Did he really do that? And doing so with dementia, he beat Obama while insulting black voters along the way. He did all of that. Come on. All right, it's time. There's still time to jump off that bandwagon. And you know something else? And I'm going to take a really quick break and I'm going to take your calls. Credit where credit's due. Jen Psaki. I got to say, getting the hell out of Dodge makes it very much sense right now. A lot of sense. She was a cunning enough little ginger demon to assess the situation and took the best and earliest offer to get the hell out. You can't tell me she didn't see the writing on the wall, and the writing all over the wall was crayon. It was crayon, my friends. I got to give her credit for that. She said, I got to get the hell out of here. Not changing diapers. Got myself a nice little job somewhere else, and that's it. The other one is, she's too much of a hanger-on. Anyway, we'll be right back. We'll take some of your calls, and we'll close this one out. Don't go anywhere.
How long have you been with her?
Say that again, but then do your fart sound.
How long have you been with her? Hold on. Dude, look the other way. Hold on. How long have you been? That was a good one. How long have you been with her? I got it. How long have you been? Shit. I got it.
You're listening to Quite Frankly.
Welcome to Perpetual Health Minute, brought to you by Quite Frankly. Fat matters. Now, I often tell you that the quality of the fat matters far more than the quantity of fat in your diet. And specifically, I'm speaking about the omega-6 to 3 ratio, which tends to be elevated when we consume things like industrial seed oils. So this brand new paper in animal research showed that not all high-fat diets were created equal. In fact, animals who consumed a high-fat diet with a low omega-6 to 3 ratio, they consumed less calories and exhibited less weight gain compared to groups with a higher omega-6 to 3 ratio. And those animals who consumed a higher fat diet with high omega-6 to 3 ratios also had neuroinflammation and behavioral deterioration. So while we may not know all the mechanisms of high omega-6 diets, one thing is for sure. Groups that consume higher omega-6 diets tend to have worsening health outcomes, and that's enough to keep them out of your cabinets for now. If you like this video, please follow the new Perpetual Health Rumble channel. You can also find us at perpetualhealth.substack.com. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and back to the show.
Some calls, 914-200-0269, 914-200-0269. Hey, Murray, how the hell are you doing?
I'm great. How you doing, Frank?
I'm all right. Welcome to the show.
Oh, yeah, I'm on, right?
Yeah, you're on.
Cool. Hey, I got to tell you about a synchronicity today that was just, and hopefully it will build and follow through. Gareth Saldano, I'm from Michigan originally. He was our gubernatorial candidate against Whitmer. And he actually spearheaded the Stand Up for Michigan campaign. And I followed him, I met him, I went to his rallies. Oh, and he's an amazing man. I'm from Kalamazoo originally. And he, he's got a very, interesting story. Grew up in a trailer park, WMU, football alum, all of that. chiropractor, successful man, family man, and I was just really moved by this man. And because he spearheaded the Stand Up for Michigan campaign, he got everybody just to go against her, right?
Uh-huh.
And so today he started this grassroots army program or movement. And I recommend everybody just follow him. And actually, I'm just kind of sad that because he had hundreds of thousands of supporters in Michigan, and now he's down to, if I get a live stream like this morning, he had a live stream on at Grassroots Army. He's got 2 or 3 people watching him, and I'm like, what the hell happened? Where did your base go? Because he hasn't given up. He hasn't given up at all. And ironically, this morning, what happened was he had this sheriff candidate for Hillsdale County, Michigan on, who had been trained or, has been educated by Sheriff Mack. And so I immediately thought about KrisAnne Hall. I just got on his Twitter and I'm like, KrisAnne is on, on Frank right now. You need to watch. So hopefully Garrett will, see that, and hopefully this Hillsdale County sheriff candidate, who, by the way, has ran 3 times and been defeated. So,
so you're hoping that this guy that's done a lot of work out there by your neck of the woods to draw attention to Whitmer's behavior and everything else is able to get a little bit more, a few more tools in his war chest with what KrisAnne teach about?
Exactly, and he actually wasn't aware of the constitutional aspect of it as much as he was enlightened today by talking to this Hillsdale County sheriff, candidate.
Okay.
And so I said, well, you need to follow KrisAnne Hall. You need to follow her. And then here you are having her today. So, Garrett Saldano is his name. And, I recommend anybody just, if you're from Michigan, get on it. There's only, apparently, according to this candidate, I can't remember his name off that.
Okay, well, listen, if that's obviously, hopefully he goes and checks it out. Garrett Saldano, if he had a lot of people before watching him, and maybe it's just that lull in between elections. That's just what happens. People get really, really involved. They get really hyped up, and then of course it all goes away. But I hope that he goes and checks out KrisAnne's work, because she's made big impacts in local districts all over the place, especially with the sheriffs. So, but I don't know. That Whitmer is one of those things that I've been hearing that she is somebody that's been trying to stick her snout into the consideration for whatever the plans of replacing Biden in they're trying to save face, like I said. Told you they're trying to save face. Everybody's like they're trying to find an acceptable way to bow out. The night of the debate, I was sitting in the shower. I'm just thinking to myself, they're gonna come out and say, he's gonna seem sharp. They're gonna put him on so much drugs for the resignation speech. The drugs are going to be coursing through his body. Okay, it's gonna be like Niagara, but it's just gonna be amphetamines. All right, and it's gonna be coursing through his body, and he is going to be confident, and he's going to be humble. And he's going to say, I can do this job. He's going to be, put all of his confidence in himself, but also he's going to say that, democracy is bigger than one person. And I hear people's concerns, and I'm sorry about that. And I'm going to step aside and do my best for my country, because that's what I've been doing for 50 years. I can write the damn speeches. It's all so fucking predictable. But who knows? I mean, the one thing we do know is or do we? Are they really going to let this go on for much longer? 410, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hello.
Hello, go ahead.
Yeah, my name is George.
Hey, George.
And is this Frank?
Yes, it is. How are you, George?
I'm good. I'm calling about the Supreme Court Chevron case.
Go ahead.
And just wanted to make a point that the courts don't interpret the law either. The regulatory agencies don't interpret law. There's a principle of law known as the vagueness doctrine. And it goes thusly, a law which is so obscure in its promulgation that a reasonable person could not determine from reading what the law purports to command or prohibit is void as violative of due process. I just wanted to make the point that regulatory agencies, nobody interprets law. Once you understand the vagueness doctrine, it's a big myth that the Supreme Court interprets the acts of Congress, but we must presume that Congress has a command of the English language. And once again, if the law is not written clearly that you can follow its commands or prohibitions, it's void for vagueness. And just wanted to stress the vagueness doctrine and all this understanding of law.
Yeah, well, I think that it had to. Thank you so much for the call, George. That had to have come through in some respect with our, whereas it was not called out directly. But yeah, I know courts, as far as interpretations and applications go, you want to apply law as written. The whole interpretation thing, whether it be people's just due process in a general courtroom, or of course in these separate breakaway agency courts, which is even more ridiculous. But then again, you talk about what are the courts saying, what are the agencies putting forth, and then when you follow it back even to the root of it all, Congress didn't even have the authority to create the agencies, let alone the autonomous powers to regulate and actually pass fines and all types of things to red tape for us to cut through, just to open up a business, to dig a ditch in our backyard, to whatever the hell it is, to collect rainwater. That certainly didn't have any power. Nobody's, unless of course on the state level. So okay, we got a term to apply to it. 925 Wild G in the Rumble Rant says, I'm ignoring my sleep break for KrisAnne Hall. Well, so is she, because it was past midnight in London. Jay Semo says, KrisAnne is brilliant, great guest, great show. I always love having KrisAnne on around this time of year, and it just so happens that we had very, very rich topics of conversation. So that's great, too. Just Jesse, thank you. This is all on quitefrankly.tv, on pill.net, on Foxhole. I still think the one of the best places to watch. Just Jesse, thank you. Sean Joe, thank you for the whole sleeve of cookies. Khaleesi, Empress Bitch to you. Cave Toad, KrisAnne for Supreme Court Justice. There's only one KrisAnne, and there's so many problems. Like, where are you going to put her? Like, last time she was on, I was like, all right, KrisAnne, you are the Speaker of the House. What are you doing? And she just went on a murder spree. Not real murder, though. Not My Name says civics and constitutional classes need to be mandatory in schools. Listen, I think we're far beyond the point where we should expect the schools to do anything that are reasonable like that. It's just that continued education, it's just got to be privatized. The ultimate privatization at home. The Sentinel says, great show, and we always love to hear from KrisAnne Hall. I'm happy to hear that. Very happy to hear that. Over on, quite frankly, superchat.com, we got quite a few super chats. I'm going to go to the poll on YouTube in just a second. Let me put it up over here so I don't lose it. Hold on a second. Wait. There. Hold on. I just want to make sure I see what people are answering to this poll. All right, over the super chats. Father Chris Tozzi. Wow, it's been a long time. But then again, I just reached out to Father Chris the other night. He used to hang out with us every night. I know that life takes you places. But let's see. Great show, Frank. All the best to you and yours. And happy birthday to you, Father Chris. It's really good to see your name just pop up again. So hope you're well out there. ST says, great show as always. Just want to thank you for all that you do. Always enjoy KrisAnne. Much needed voice in this insanity. In case you missed it, FJB read, end of quote, at night at a press conference. He really did? God bless you and yours, Frank. I mean, it's just it's beyond the icing and of the cake with the cherry on top. It's beyond now we're just like building another cake on top of it. I don't know. It's just so bad. It's not even cake. It's just cake batter. We forgot to cook the new layer. Rosie says, one of those days I'll call in. One of those days we'll call in. I adore your show, Frank. I have spasmodic dysphonia like RFK Jr. I'm terribly self-conscious. Someday soon I'll have a lot to say as a boomer. Oh, and I want that ducky. Awesome, 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 awesome. You got it. Rosie, are you a sponsor? Wait, hold on. No, because I know that on a Sunday stream, I had somebody call in. I'm forgetting her name now. I think, is it you, Rosie? Who also has spasmodic dysphonia, like RFK Jr. And at first I thought that, much to my embarrassment, I thought that we had a bad connection. But that was just it. Well, listen, you call in whenever you're good and ready. I'd love to hear from you, Rosie. And we'll get through that call just fine. And everybody's going to love you for it. Run Anon Empty says, so love KrisAnne. What a beautiful mind and woman. Thanks, Frank. Easy breezy, not sleazy. Says, difference between dad and grill. Grill never runs out of gas. Loves you, bro. Love you, bro. Thank you. Difference between a dad and a grill is the grill never runs out of gas. Jay Britz says, hey, Frank, looking forward to KrisAnne Hall. Always feel more learned as she speaks. Yes. Me too. Shady Endeavor says, another face swap for you, Frank, but don't worry. This is less than 2 minutes, and I think it'll turn out better than Maverick. I'll post it in the Gilded video channel. Also, make Matt watch it on Wednesday when you are with him. Enjoy the video channel. Let me see. Less than 2 minutes? Silence of the Lambs. Oh, no. 1:54? What time is it? 8:52? Hold on. Let's go to that for a second. Featuring Matt, blonde, quite frankly, and Styx face swap. But is it Matt? Wait, Matt from here? Or that's Matt Christensen you're talking about? By the way, Matt Christensen on Wednesday night. That'll be fun. Who am I going to be? There's blonde. He does a good Hannibal Lecter.
My name is Clarice Starling.
Why don't you ask me about Buffalo Bill?
No.
Busy hunting.
Don't you dare. You son of a bitch. You made me Buffalo Bill?
Lotion on its skin. It does this whenever it's told.
Ugh, I can't even look at it right now. That makes me feel so upset. I was like, who did he... I would never do that to a dog. Or to a lady by that measure. She's a great big fat person. She was a big girl, sure. She was a big girl. That's my Jodie Foster impression. She was a big girl. She was a big girl. He said, I can smell your... He said, I can smell your cunt. I haven't seen that movie in a while. I got Lauren to watch that movie because it was more... I told her, listen, it's more of a thriller. It's not a horror film. And I think she liked it. Anyway, it puts the quite frankly lotion on its skin. Oh, jeez. Jeez Louise. What's happening to everybody? Let's take one more call. 219, you're on the air. Go ahead. Who's this?
Hey, Frank.
Hey.
I know you're closing your show.
It's all right. Who's this?
It's Q Magoo.
Who?
Q Magoo.
Q Magoo. What's going on, Q Magoo?
Oh, shit. Speaker. No good. Okay. What I wanted to say is I love it when you have KrisAnne Hall on And I think the most important thing about it is that she specified that it was an opinion. It's an opinion of the courts, and it can always be changed. Even like the precedent of law, it can always be changed, and those little trolls are always working to change that precedent of law. It's opinion.
Yes.
And I guess that's all I had to say. I had another thing to say, but I forget. So,
well, listen, it's a great thing because I have a few thoughts on that I can put out there that I wanted to say when she was on the air, and that'll bring us right to the end. So, Q Magoo, I hope you call in more often because this is a very pleasant call, and I really appreciated that.
thanks, Frank.
All right,
You're doing a great job. Thanks.
Oh, thank you so much. That is something that I think about a lot is the opinions, because of course you say, well, the easy thing is about this is regardless of who gives what opinion, if you in your state, you and all the people around you you just know exactly what's going on. You know exactly what's happening in the world and with in our country, then you just go on doing whatever the hell you want. The 10th Amendment is your guide. You line item veto. You're not sending money away to the federal government. Of course, you have to be completely financially free and sovereign. You can't be that bold. You can't go and ignore opinions on one thing or another unless you're completely financially sovereign and autonomous, separate from the methadone drip of the federal government. It's a great thing. Now, on top of that, there is all the precedent from the 1950s and 60s, especially with integration, like the militarized integration of schools, that we're really going to test. We're really going to test it there. You want to ignore opinions. You want to go off on your own, and you want to just act by the defining law, the defining word of the contract that everybody is operating under. Then you just got to be able to weather the storm, because it's going to get physical at some point. It's gotten physical in the past. It'll be labeled insurrection, because that's just where we are, you know? It's just nutty. It really is. And I think about that a lot. I was thinking about that before when I was putting all this together, and I don't know what else. The proper relationship between government and the media, for example. I mean, regardless of what ultimately comes of all this stuff, like government, media, big tech, they are ideological fellow travelers. And that's the whole thing. Ideological. That's the most unsatisfying part about having all these opinions reversed, is that, you know, especially reversed so many years later. You want to not only get the righteous victory in court, but you want people to know why it's righteous. You know? You want to get the righteous victory in court. You want to go back to actually living freely and actually apply and living through that. But you also want people to know why it's righteous. The problem is most people, regardless of party, don't really know their asses from their elbows. Because everybody has to give up something. Everybody has to give up something. If we really do what needs to be done to restore this, or at least to go back to some normal functioning order here, where everything makes a little bit more sense. That's rough there. So yeah, opinions are opinions. Action is gold, and also has to be treaded very, very lightly, because we've got booby traps all around. We are surrounded by booby traps. That's that. The chill effect. Boy, do we know that chill effect. When was the last time you went to have you been to a political rally since January 6th? And how long did it take for you to feel comfortable enough going out and expressing opinions in a group of more than 3 after January of 2021? And then, of course, you couldn't even express opinions online. So there was that. But plenty more to say tomorrow night. I can't wait to take more of your calls. I'll come up with a couple more topics to lace into these things, but it should be good. Thank you so much again, KrisAnne Hall. She's probably already fast asleep. Thank you to Secret Weapon, who just said, thanks, Frank. Thank you, too. I'm releasing the scratch-in on quitefrankly.tv. Wonderful group over there on pilled.net. I love that site. And thank you to everybody on Rumble who has been very lively tonight, and I'm grateful for that, too. It's good to have you out there. Wart Guy says, Happy July, Frank. And again, Wart Guy says, hearing you say I would never do that to a lady reminds me of Norm's shallow grave bit. I would never do that to a dog. And also a lady. Okay, that's that. Thank you, guys and gals. I'll see you tomorrow, and good night.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
Quite Frankly is filmed before a live studio audience, and now our super chatters, starting with Father Chris Tozzi, ST, Rosie, Running on Empty, Easy Breezy Not Sleazy, Jay Brits, and Shady Endeavor. Thank you to our wonderful Rumble Ranters and our Gold Pillars. I'm really appreciating you all tonight. I'll see you tomorrow night. Oh, and here is the poll on YouTube right now. 63% say that Joe Biden's greatest accomplishment was crapping in front of the Pope. 23% says crapping in front of the Queen. And 15% said that they're going to leave their pick in the comments after the show. Leave all thoughts in the comments after the show on YouTube, on Rumble, wherever the hell there's a comment section. Light it up. See you tomorrow.
Everybody else shit. Fuck. Everybody else shit. Fuck. Everybody else shit. Fuck. Everybody else shit. Fuck.